Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. If you are new, if you're not new, welcome back to my channel. My name is Marina and today I am back with another book wrap up. We're gonna do this in my bed, which is fine because like who really cares where I do this? You guys are here to listen to me talk about the books that I read in March. And let me tell you, I'm really excited for this. I have read in total 7 books this month and everything was good, if not great, if not exceptional. I did not read a single bad book this month. And I'm very excited to talk about them with you guys because you guys know a lot of like big releases came out this month. Not a lot, but like a few of them came out this month. And honestly, for the rest of spring, they're going to be a lot of big releases that I can't wait to read. With that being said, I'm about to tell you guys all the books that I read. Yay! So the first book that I read is one that you guys know I was in the process of rereading for the next book in the series that came out in March. I reread Bloodmarked by Tracy Deonn. Like I said, it was in preparation for Oathbound. My reread of this was interesting though because unlike Legendborn, I have not reread this book. Legendborn, you guys know I've reread several times. This is my first time picking this book up since it released. And honestly surprising to me that I gave it a lower review than what I gave it on my first read. I think I gave it 3.75 stars if I'm not mistaken. And that doesn't mean I love it any less. Let's just be clear. I love this book with my whole being. I love this series with my whole being. Tracy Deonn has never written a bad book in her life. However, I think taking a few years to just like process this series and where we left off and then rereading where we left off, I'm able to see a few things in this book that I'm not the biggest fan of. And I think I wasn't the biggest fan of it upon my first read, but I had rose tinted glasses on that first read because coming off of this book, it was like a major high. Like I remember even filming the reading vlog for it, which is on my other channel, and just like praising this book to no end. And I can still praise this book to no end. Again, it's not a bad book. I just think I realized upon my reread that there was a way in which Tracy Deonn gave a lot of like the world building and the lore that comes with this series in a way that was more info dumpy than I typically like to read, especially with like fantasy. You see like all of these different worlds being created and from these authors' minds, and it's like honestly groundbreaking work, but then the way that they deliver the information, it varies, and I'm not a fan of like paragraphs on paragraphs on paragraphs on paragraphs giving me info and then that info just not making sense. And I feel like that's what happened in Bloodmarked, and I think I even brought this up in my Oathbound reading vlog, how I was still confused. By the time I finished my reread of this, I was still confused as to how some things worked, and I wanted the answers more so explained in Oathbound because Bloodmarked didn't really give me much of anything. On my first read, I was like, oh, this is fine. Like, I think I get it. But then by my first reread of this, I was like, I don't get it, and I'm kind of confused as to why I don't get it, especially because of how long this book is. This is like around 500 pages, I think. For all of what's in this book, the amount of information that's given at the rapid pace of the book, the pace of the book is like crazy in this one. I feel like it should have been explained a little bit better. Like there are still some things that I don't understand. For example, memory walking. If you did not read this book or this series, you don't know what I'm talking about, but there's like this one scene there are multiple scenes actually in this book where the main character does this thing called blood walking, and no one really knows how she's doing it. Like there's no rhyme or reason or explanation as to how she's doing this. It's just kind of a given, I guess, that she can do it and no one's really questioning it for real. I know at some point in the book, one of the characters explains it as like DNA memory or transcending the magical element, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, but why though? Bree is the chosen one and she has like all of these like powers due to like her different lineages and bloodlines and whatnot, that she of course would have the power to blood walk or memory walk, I guess. But it still doesn't really make sense what she can do on that memory walk. I'm trying to be vague on purpose because I don't want to spoil it for anyone who wants to read this series, but it's just really like, it's just random stuff like that just wasn't fully explained, and I never understood it. Like even after reading Oathbound, I still don't understand some of the things that was explained in this book. Another thing that I had to kind of grasp onto that I didn't like was the fact that this book takes a minute to start up, I will say. Like, I would say, honestly, the first 200 pages drag. Like, I feel like that could have been chopped down into 100 pages and it still would have had the same impact. Besides that, I liked everything about this book. I especially liked, of course, the Cell and Bree moments, because what we got in this book of those two, so iconic. Just thinking about it literally makes me start giggling and kicking my feet. Like, she's writing real romance in this series. I'm going to touch more on that in Oathbound, but like, wow, that's crazy. I gave this book 3.75. I think the first time I read it, I gave it a 5-star. So rereading is always interesting for me, because especially if it's a book that like I really loved on the first read, it's really interesting for me to like go back and see things that I wasn't able to see before, or things that I wouldn't have noticed before. Don't love it any less, it's just a lower rating. Now onto the recent release. Let's talk about this bad boy here, Oathbound, which, by the way, I got the Barnes & Noble exclusive edition. Came in like this purple based dust jacket, and then look at the end papers it has. And then the book itself is purple with like gold foiling. I had to get it. I had to get it. My other copy was like the original, like normal copy of the book. One thing I will say though, my other copy of it was signed and this one isn't, so that's like the only takeaway, but it's fine. The only reason I didn't keep it is because I'm trying to do this thing where I don't have multiple copies of a book on my shelf unless I have room for it. And I just don't have room for multiple copies of Legendborn on my shelf. If I did, I would have literally every edition of Legendborn. So let's talk about Oathbound. I feel like I don't need to talk about it because I literally made an 1.5 hour long reading vlog. So I'm really not gonna harp on this book too much. I gave it a 4-star. I think in my reading vlog, I said I gave it a 4.5. Since then, I bumped it down to a 4. This book, Tracy Deonn, I would love to explore your brain and figure out how you make something of this magnitude, this caliber. Like, what do you do to put this in here into this right here? I guess you could say that I had a good time with this book. Like, I don't know. I think the best way to describe my thoughts and opinions is to literally read straight off of my Storygraph review, which is long. Like, it's long, I'm not gonna hold you, but I think you guys really need to understand like my feelings and my ins and outs and my takeaways from this book, and I don't think I can put it into words off the cuff. I think I literally have to read it from my Storygraph review. This book was everything I wanted from it and more. I can't express in words how Tracy Deonn continues to exceed my expectations. Everything she has done with this story up to this point has not only been fulfilling to read as a young Black woman who enjoys fantasy, but also as someone who has been with this series since it started in 2020 and has been able to see it progress into something I never would have imagined. The entire point of this book was to explore Bree's trauma and feelings from the start of this series until now, and how that has impacted the way she not only sees herself, but also the path she was put on. I think her character has finally come into her own by figuring out that she is as powerful as everyone says she is. She just had to overcome the guilt she was feeling from how she was using that power. This arc for Bree was definitely needed before getting to the finale of the series. I also love that we got several other POVs, and with that, their own mini character arcs. William and Mariah have always been some of my favorite characters from the series, but I love that this story highlights their struggles as well, and how they also need to find ways to not only overcome them, but also acknowledge them in order to move forward. I love what Deonn does with the side characters of this series by making them whole and grounded in their own problems. It makes them more dimensional and more attached to the story. As for the romance, I have never seen a love triangle this messy in my life. And it's not even because of how the characters are handling it, it's just the circumstances they have been put in. I think one of my favorite parts of this book is actually getting to know Nicholas more as a character, which is crazy because we barely got any chapters with his point of view. I just think compared to the first book, this book highlights different aspects of his personality that make him feel more real as opposed to just the golden boy archetype. He's not made of gold. His own arc of having to break down the system he wasn't just learn to respect and worship, but also be worshipped by it was so well written. I'm gonna skip some of this because this is getting into spoiler territory. Okay, yada yada yada. As someone who has always liked Nick, I can confidently say this book made me absolutely adore him. As for Selwyn Kane, I have no words. To barely be in the book and have that much of an impact, so iconic. He will always be loved by me. The one thing about this book that I didn't particularly enjoy was the pacing because of the several POVs and the time jumps. Its progression of the story felt kind of choppy at times. Overall though, I loved it and I need the 4th book expeditiously. Did you get all that? As you can see, I loved Oathbound by Tracy Deonn. All of what I just said you could tell from the reading vlog, so literally just go watch that if you want to see like my long takes and my reactions to certain parts of the book. go there. But yeah, I absolutely love this book, and the one thing I didn't like was the pacing, because I felt like there was a lot of skipping around, not even just with like the point of views, but like with the time points that we were at. Like sometimes it felt hard to follow the story because it was non-linear, because everyone is getting their own point of view. We're getting to see them at different times of the story. So in 1 minute it's like 4 months later, next it's like 72 hours before and stuff like that, and it was a little bit hard to follow, I'm not gonna lie. But I thoroughly enjoyed this, and I can't wait for the fourth one. Not that she has released a date for it or anything, but best believe I will be waiting. The next book I read is one that I actually brought up to you guys like in my last wrap up, I think, because I told you guys that I was in the middle of it before Oathbound and everything with that happened. Team Players by Deanna Gray. This was a book that I started back in February that I had to pause for my reread, and then I got back into it as soon as I finished Oathbound, as I thought I would, because I think I also said in that wrap up that I would need something a little bit more light and fluffy to read after Oathbound. And this, I feel like, was the perfect thing to go to after reading Oathbound, because it is kind of just like a happy, fluffy rom-com hockey romance type of book. If you guys don't know what this book is about, I don't know if you guys can even see that because like the light is glaring over it, sorry. This book follows Samson, Morgan, and Adrian, I think that's how you pronounce her name. I'm not gonna lie, I don't know how to pronounce the main character's name. I was struggling throughout the whole entire book. I think her name is Adrian, if not Adarin. This book follows Adrian and Samson as they try to be good captains of their respective hockey teams. Adrian is the captain of the girls hockey team. Samson is the captain of his boys hockey team. But they run into an issue where Adrian feels like she can't do casual in relationships, and because of that she feels like her love life is struggling because she's all in right away, whereas Samson is too easygoing in relationships and he feels like he maybe can't commit to anything. So they make a pact. It's kind of like a friends with benefits deal, where Adrian is like, okay, you only can be with me, like sleep with me, and I can only ever like sleep around with you, as in like I don't want anything more, I don't want to go out with you, I'll sleep with other guys, but this will be a casual thing. And it's just like, I don't know, to test if they can do it. I don't know. And obviously like along the way they end up getting feelings for each other through this deal that they make. And yeah, I gave this book a 3.5 stars. Now I remember again in that video me talking about how this could possibly be one of my favorite reads of the year. And while I was at that point in the book of where I mentioned that, I did feel that way. Now obviously, due to my 3.5 rating, you can see that my thoughts have changed a bit. It's not that this is a bad book, because it's not. Deanna Gray, I really do love the way that she writes romance. I feel like something about this book was underdeveloped. I don't know if it was the characters or the way that the plot progressed or anything, because like with Sunny Disposition, which is the first book in the Mendel Hawks series, I really felt like I understood the characters and their motivations and the plot and the side plot and even the side characters a bit. With these two, Adrian and Samson, I didn't feel that way, and it makes me really sad because I felt a lot of hope again. Like with the first half of this book, I was like, this is so good, and then by the end of it, it felt kind of unfulfilling in a way. Like you see both of these characters have these struggles when it comes to how they deal with relationships. They're addressed, but not in a way that makes it seem like they're like trying to solve anything or fix anything. They kind of just go about the book simping for each other, which is fine. I love some pining. Pining is great. But the root of the book is this deal that they made to help each other with what they lack in relationships. And I feel like by the end, they don't get to the root of those issues. The book itself was good. I just feel like the way that the characters' relationships progressed wasn't all that great. Because also, it was kind of giving, not insta love, insta attraction for sure, which is what I feel like comes with the friends with benefits sort of trope. You have to have some type of attraction in order to get the benefits out of it. But yeah, the pining and stuff was so good, but the relationship itself and the way that the story played out wasn't. And also the B plot having to do with like the coach and what was going on behind the scenes of the sports department, like in Samson's point of view, that was interesting, but again, it felt like it wasn't explored enough. Like I don't know how else to explain it. I just feel like something about this book felt like a first draft. and it wasn't really selling me towards the end of the book. I just wish that I got more out of it. I honestly would have preferred if this was maybe 100 pages more, maybe. I don't know. Just my thoughts. Screenplay is ready, Anna Gray. I will be seated for the third book in the series though, because I'm pretty sure that follows Lincoln and the main character's friend from the first book. Lincoln and that friend. I'm very excited. It's giving golden retriever boyfriend and black cat GF, or maybe not black cat, because I know that she's just like naturally quiet and doesn't really talk to people, but she seems very nice. And Lincoln, is it Lincoln? I feel like it probably is. I don't remember. I need to go check, but I'm very excited for whatever that book has in store. Because are you kidding? Ooh, I saw the fan art for it, or not the fan art, but like the cover. It looks so cute. Now let's get on to the next book that I read that I also brought up in one of my previous videos. Sunrise on the Reaping by Miss Suzanne Collins, the one and only. This book is Haymitch's book in the Hunger Games series, or I guess like it's a Hunger Games novel. I don't think it would necessarily count in like the Hunger Games OG trilogy or series or whatever. This is another prequel. As you guys know, I got into Hunger Games recently, like within the last few years. Not like the Hunger Games itself, because I was a big fan of the movies when I was younger, but I never actually read the books up until a few years ago. So my obsession with this series has, I would guess you could say, quadrupled since I was a kid because of my attachment to the characters in the series now, like the book series. I love them all. So as long as Suzanne Collins keeps putting out these books, I will continue reading them. I think that her pen, it's just too good. It's too good. It's only gotten better with time too. Let's talk about this book, okay? I gave this book a 4.5 stars. If you guys don't know what the Hunger Games series is, I don't really know what to tell you. Like, I don't know how that's the case. Like, it's actually very confusing to me if you don't. You should go look into that. But this book follows Haymitch from the OG Hunger Games trilogy. He was the mentor for Katniss and Peeta in their Hunger Games, and this book follows his. Because as we all know, mentors of the Hunger Games become mentors by winning their own Hunger Games when they were tributes. And as the only mentor in District 12, Haymitch was able to mentor Katniss and Peeta during their time in the games. And so this book follows him as he gets picked at the Reaping. We have to follow him through his whole journey in his Hunger Games and how he ends up the way that he is in the OG trilogy, which is a very sad, depressed drunk who has a lot of love to give, but is just really very so depressed. A lot of people love Haymitch. I think a lot of people were excited for this book, especially because his book follows a quarter quell and everyone knows about Haymitch's story because of the little bits and pieces that we got from the OG trilogy. The quarter quell is basically every 25 years, President Snow wants to be evil even more than he already is and makes the tributes have to go through even worse games than the others. So like every 25 years there's always a little spin on the games to make it more competitive, more hard, more, I don't even think there's a word to describe what Snow does in order to make these kids go through hell in these games. But anyway, in Haymitch's game he has double the tributes, so instead of 24, so 2 from each district, there are 4 from each district for his games. This book was so freaking sad. Everyone is saying, I don't know if everyone's saying this, but my circle of people that have been reading this book has said that this is probably the best Hunger Games book. I definitely feel like it's top 3. I don't think it's the best. I don't think anything could beat The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes for me. That's personally my favorite, but also Catching Fire. Like, those two go head to head in my brain when it comes to the top spot. But I think that this is like definitely a contender, like right underneath those two. I think that this book is so freaking good. Nothing could have emotionally prepared me for what I was about to read when I opened this book up. I don't think anything could have prepared me to read in baby boy Haymitch's point of view and what he had to go through at such a young age, just like all of these tributes have to go through. It's honestly sick, especially when you take into consideration that his birthday is literally on the day of the Reaping. Oh my god, it's like, it's sick and it's twisted, and I won't have it. I know that Snow is dead, but I need him to come back to Earth so he can pay for his crimes again. I don't care that he's a fictional character. The pain that I'm feeling from these characters because of what he did to them is real, so therefore he has to come back and he will pay for his crimes. Anyway, I should tell you guys how I feel about this book if you couldn't tell already. Being able to see Haymitch as like a teenager, not only as a teenager, but like as a hopeful teenager was just very nice to see, because you could tell that he has so much love in his heart to give, and all he wants to do is help people, and Snow does not hesitate to remind him that he can't do that. As I've told you, like throughout this entire book, you see how he gets to the point of where he's at in the Hunger Games, where he's not this version of himself anymore, and it's because Snow does everything to break that version of him down. So this entire book, you're basically seeing him like slowly decline mentally. It's not fun. It's not great. You're not gonna have a fun time reading this. Well, you might. I had a not fun. Fun's not the right word, but I guess I had a good time. Just thinking about this book again just brings back a lot of pain. I can't. Like this book, I think, honestly, and I'm being so serious, I think this book hurt the most to read. Like seriously. I was talking to one of my friends about this. The parallels between Haymitch and Katniss and, you know, Lucy Gray and all of these District 12 tributes that go against Snow, the parallels have always been there, but especially with Haymitch and Katniss. Like that's the father. I'm sorry, someone needs to bring Maury to District 12, because I seriously think like the parallels are just Suzanne Collins or Penn. Crazy. Everything he did, all of the fight he had was for the ones he loved back home. His brother, his mom, the love of his life. Like everything he did was to get back to them. But yet he didn't want to do it in a way that was evil. And you just see his spirit slowly die because Snow is evil and he just wants to kill the spirit of anyone and everyone from District 12 because he's petty. He's an old man who is having beef with 16-year-olds. He's sick and twisted. I can't talk about this book without getting irritated all over again. I'm so sorry. Like being able to see Haymitch of all characters as like hopeful and kind of optimistic and a little bit naive. It was just really refreshing, but also sad because you know how it's gonna end. And also with the characters that you meet in this book, you get attached to them just to know what's going to happen, because obviously we know that Haymitch ends up winning these games. So like trying to read this book was so hard because I was like, I'm not trying to get attached to any of these characters, but they're all just so sweet and innocent children that I can't help but get attached. And then as we all know, Hunger Games, we all know their fate. So yeah, this book was just like an emotional roller coaster. I loved it from beginning to end. The reason I gave it a 4.5 was because I feel like the book doesn't really do a good job of showing who Lenore Dove is. If you guys don't know, Lenore Dove is the love of Haymitch's life. It's the girl that he's fighting so hard in the Hunger Games to get back to in District 12. And Haymitch is constantly bringing up this girl as his motivation. And I feel like I didn't really understand the motivation because we didn't really see their relationship much before he got picked at the reaping, which is again very tragic. But anyway, I would like to understand his feelings for her a little bit more, because if I'm being honest, she kind of just seemed like a carbon copy of Lucy Gray. And I don't know if that's like because of the specific reason that I won't say in case it's a spoiler, I don't know, or just because like she's such a side character in the book that you don't really get a feel for her. But I would have liked to see more of her, because the parts that we do see of her are very tragic from beginning to end. Like we don't really get to see much of her. So yeah, that's the only reason why. I just feel like if this person is going to be your motivation, I should understand her a bit more. But again, it's not really Haymitch's fault that the only time that we get to see her is at the saddest points of the book. Like that's not Haymitch's fault. I understand why that was done that way. It's just like one of my biggest gripes with the book, and even that's like a little bit nitpicky, I will admit. But yeah, besides that, I love that book. Let's get on to something happier because I can't talk about that book without getting sad. I am so sad. Okay, let's talk about Spy Family Volume 1. I read that almost immediately after Sunrise on the Reaping, because I realized that I was just really sad, especially after reading like Oathbound and Sunrise on the Reaping kind of back to back right after each other. I was not doing well up here. So I decided to pick up a manga. Spy Family Volume 1 is the first volume in the Spy Family series, and I've watched the anime. I've seen it. I've seen a few episodes. I'm not like a full-on like connoisseur of anime. Sometimes it really depends on what anime, but I have seen a few episodes of Spy Family, and so I already knew the story. I already knew the characters kind of. So I just wanted to get into this because I've always said that I wanted to read the Spy Family manga. I just never got around to it until now because I just really needed something to pick me up. And the Spy Family series is very lighthearted and fun. So what better way to bring up my mood than that? Am I right? If you guys don't know what the Spy Family manga is, you really should. And you should also watch the anime. But anyway, it follows a spy, an assassin, and a telepath child. And these three are faking being a family to go on missions and side quests, and it's just overall really fun, goofy time. It's very action-packed too. I will say, like, the action is like some of my favorite parts of reading the book. Watching it in the show was nice, but I feel like being able to see like the impact of each action sequence and like the panels of manga is always like my favorite part of reading a manga series. Like I said, I was already familiar with the story and the characters, so I don't really have much to go off on, like, in terms of like first impressions. I really enjoy the characters. Twilight, love you. I love the spy. His name is Twilight. He's great. He's very kind of grumpy sunshine coded in a way if you're looking at it from like a romance perspective, but also like not, I'd say like grumpy shy girl trope maybe. It's really fun. And then, like, of course, I'm forgetting her name, but like the telepath baby child or whatever, she's also really cute and really funny. And everything about this story is just like, it's found family, but like to such an extreme level that it's so funny. Like, I can't talk about this book without smiling, which was the point. I really wanted to just read something lighthearted, and this did the trick. I gave it 5 stars, and I would love to read more of it. When, I don't know, but yeah, that's Spy Family. Now let's get on to the classic of the month. I read Beloved by Toni Morrison. I know, right? I just talked about wanting to read something lighthearted and happy, and then I immediately picked up Beloved after reading Spy Family. Am I okay? No, not really. Beloved was my classic pick of the month because I've always wanted to read a Toni Morrison book, and I never have. And I've only heard great things about her books, but I did know that most, if not all, of her books are very freaking sad. So I was like, you know what? 2 books so far I've read, Oathbound and Sunrise on the Reaping, that have like broke me emotionally. Let's see if a third one can really just like hone it in. And it almost did, let me tell you. If you don't know what Beloved is a book by Toni Morrison about, I think her name is Seath. I think that's how you pronounce it, either Seath or Seth. I'm pretty sure it's Seath though. Seath is a mother to her daughter Denver, and they live in a house in Ohio. And it's a very quiet community that they live in. They are runaway slaves, and when they found this house, they were in good spirits because they finally got away from their slave owners, and happy, great times. Except that the house is haunted by Seath's baby that died years ago. And this whole book is unpacking the different themes that come with loss and grief. It's also kind of uncovering the mystery. I would say it's a mystery because it doesn't really get like revealed until like the midpoint of the book of how that baby died and why it's haunting this house and why Seath and her daughter don't want to leave this house. There's like a lot going on in this book. It's very dark. I would seriously check trigger warnings, like no joke. This book, it took me a little over a week to read, and it's not long. It's a little over, I think, 200 pages. I didn't read this copy. I read the paperback. This is like the special edition that I hauled a few months ago. I think this book is like a little over 200 pages, maybe 300 pages. So it's not long, but it took me a long time to read because, oh my gosh, Toni Morrison, I was not familiar with your game. I was not familiar with your pen. Miss Girl, are you okay? To write something like this, I don't even want to know the kind of headspace you would have to put yourself in. I've never seen grief depicted so vividly in my life, and I think that's why it put me down such like a dark spiral towards the end of the month. I was like, oh, so this is what we're doing. Cool. And again, I did know somewhat of the premise of the book. I just don't think I was prepared for how it was going to be depicted through Toni Morrison's writing. Like the prose, guys, her writing really gagged me. She has such an eloquent, beautiful way of writing emotional scenes that characters go through. Like whatever grief that Seath is going through in the years of the baby's passing, you feel on every single page, like on a deep level. And then you also feel it through her daughter, Denver, because in some chapters you get Denver's point of view too, as to how the death of her sister affected her, even though she didn't really know her sister. At that point, by the time that the child passed, Denver was like barely a few months old or something like that. So Denver didn't even really know her sister, but she knows her through her haunting this house. And so you see the relationship that both mother and daughter have with this ghost baby. And again, why this baby is around and how she ends up haunting them in other ways. And then you meet a lot of characters along the way. And here's the thing, right? I feel like a lot of classics tend to explore characters because a lot of classics are lit fic, and literary fiction isn't something that I immediately like grapple onto, but again, because a lot of classics are that's what I've been reading lately this year. And when it comes to lit fic, you have to kind of hone in on characters, whether that be character analysis or character dynamics with each other, or how characters can progress different storylines and different archetypes and all this stuff. It's very interesting. But I think that the way that Toni Morrison hones in on all of the characters in this book, it makes it feel like everyone is important. Like even the most like background characters have their own history and story in this book that make you really attached to them. Like there are some characters that were brought up in like the first 10 pages that you don't see again until like page 200 something, and they finally get their backstory. You're just like, wow, I wish I saw more of them, because what do you mean they went through this? Are they okay? Like what's going on? Like she has a certain way of like making sure every character has their moment to shine, even though again this is Seath's story and how she is dealing with grief, but it also shows how the grief that has come from this family has affected a lot of people in this town, a lot of the side characters in this town, and it was just like beautifully depicted, I will say. Like again, I've never read a story where grief is depicted like this before, and it was just really, it was something else. I didn't put a full-on review of it in Storygraph because I think by the time the end of the month came, I was too tired to put my reviews into words anymore. But yeah, it's been about a few days since I finished this, and it was just, it was something else. It was crazy, wild. I would say I would read another Toni Morrison book again. That might be a lie though. I feel like I really need to be in the right headspace to read another Toni Morrison book, because like I said, I think all of her books are sad. I never heard anyone say, oh, this is a happy Toni Morrison, this is an uplifting Toni Morrison. I never heard that in my life. If there is one, you guys can recommend it and I will gladly read it. But I think I need a break from her, because this definitely did things to me. And again, check the trigger warnings. I can't stress that enough. There's like a few scenes in here that I was like, oh, made me jump back from the book. I had to put it down. I was like, oh, okay, I did not know we were doing this. Overall, I gave it, again, what did I give it? 4 out of 5. So, Beloved by Toni Morrison. Okay, and on to the last book that I read in March. So, this is not a surprise, because I think I told you guys in my last video that I was in the middle of reading this one, and I did finish it on the last day of March. I barely made the cut. I did end up reading The Right Move by Liz Tom Ford, the second book in the Windy Cities series. I ended up giving this book a 3.75. I like this book a lot. I said this in my last video. I don't think it beats out the first book and how that book made me feel. But I did have a good time with it, which is all I really wanted, especially after reading Beloved. I was just switching back and forth between good vibes and books that made me literally want to jump into traffic. If you guys don't know what this book is about, it follows the basketball player, NBA star Ryan, and Indy, Ryan's sister's best friend. My mom is having a key in her room. I don't know what's going on. Sorry if you can hear that. Yeah, it follows Indy, who is Ryan's sister's best friend. And Indy, as we see at the like tail end of the first book, she ends up breaking up with her longtime boyfriend, and because they end up being broken up, she ends up moving out of the place that they shared, and she has nowhere to live. And so Stevie is Indy's best friend, Ryan's sister. Stevie ends up asking Ryan if he can share his multi-million-dollar apartment with Indy. And Ryan is like, no, I'd rather not do that. I met her once and she puked on me while drunk, so no thank you. And Stevie like literally begs him, please. She's like, please, because like she really needs it, and you're never even here anyway. You're always traveling, and she's always traveling too because she's a flight attendant, so you guys will barely see each other. It'll work out just fine. And because Ryan will do anything for his sister, he's like, sure, okay, whatever. They end up moving in. They become roommates almost instantly. They don't really have the best relationship off the bat, but due to circumstances, they end up having to fake a date because Indy gets invited to her best friend, one of her best friends' weddings, and this best friend is also friends with her ex, and her ex is invited, and she's like, hey, I need you to be my fake date to this so he can see that I'm doing great. And Ryan needs her to be his fake girlfriend because his coach does not like that he is so cold and dry when it comes to building bonds and relationship with his team members. He's just like, do you have any real relationships outside of your sister? We only ever see you with your sister. I feel like you're not meant to be like the team captain of this team because of how you deal with relationships. And so Ryan is like, I have a girlfriend, Indy's my girlfriend. So yeah, due to this, they make a deal to fake date. And as you know, fake dating, not really my cup of tea. So with that being said, I didn't think this book would get much of the same rating as Mile High anyway, because I'm not the biggest fan of this trope. But all in all, I really did end up liking it. I didn't put a review for this one either because, again, by the end of the month, I was totally done with reviewing. But I think that the way that this book did the fake dating trope wasn't all that bad. I felt like the pining was really good. However, I could tell by like the 10%, 15% mark of the book that the feelings were definitely there from the start. No one was really faking anything. The attraction was there. The feelings were there. So for the other 75% of the book, it was kind of just like me waiting for something to happen. I am a fan of slow burn, so I don't really like insta love or instant attraction or stuff like that. It's not really what I'm a fan of. So the wait for it wasn't really fun for me. But I did enjoy the characters. I like both Ryan and Indy separately and together. I think that they make a really cute couple. I think that Indy, the way that Liz Tom Ford wrote her as a character, I felt her pain with everything she was going through, whether it be like with her breakup and what her boyfriend did to her, or just like her other struggles outside of that relationship and what she wants to do for herself and for her own person. I definitely understood that side of her character a lot, and I liked what Liz Tom Ford did with her character. As for Ryan, I felt like him having to like explore why he is this way with relationships with Indy coming into his life was also well written. Like, I could understand both sides, and it is in dual POV, so it was, again, I guess you could say very easy to understand both sides due to it being in dual POV. But sometimes it's not like that, because like I said, with team players, it was like kind of hard for me to follow the motivations of the characters and why they were doing some things and whatnot. With this book, it was kind of a flip on its head, and I really enjoyed that. I think I gave it a 3.75 because, again, I don't really like the weight that comes with fake dating, because my thing is, if you already like each other and you're already fake dating, you might as well just try it out for real. Like that, like by the time that, like, I'm not gonna lie, the 75% mark hit in the book, that's when I started skimming the rest. I felt like this book could have taken off at least 100 pages and it would have had the same effect for me. But yeah, I liked this book a lot. I liked the characters. I am very open to reading the others, as you guys know, because the third book is like one of my fallback books for April. If I feel like picking that up in the next few weeks, I just might. But because I have a lot of books to read so far this month, I don't think that's going to be the case. We will see though. I'm so sorry if you can hear anything going on outside of my room. I do not know what's going on. But yeah, those are all of the books that I read in March. I feel like March was kind of a long month in general. So by the time I finished my last book of the month, I was like, wow, I really read all of these. It felt like time was slowed down in March. Like, I feel like I had a lot of time to read a lot of the books that I had, because look at these. A lot of these are like kind of long. I hope that you guys enjoyed this. If you did, thank you. If you read any of these books in March, let me know your thoughts on them or what you have been reading in March. If you'd like to give me recommendations for April or any of the upcoming months, let me know and I will try to read those. And yeah, I think that's it. I will see you guys in my next video. Bye everyone.